What's going on, everybody? Ronnie Withager, and I had posted on my social media earlier today asking for what my next webinar topic should be. And buddy, since fifth grade, Jeremy Webb, he's got his own little business, Fitted Tailored Health and Fitness. And he had reached out and just kind of, invited me to do a little conversation here on quarterly taxes and what that meant. And I just felt like that was really perfect because a lot of people ask me that question. A lot of people start a new business and they start worrying about, quarterlies. They hear this term, now you got to file quarterly taxes. And it seems like there's a lot of confusion with people on what that actually means and what they actually need to do. So I'm going to break down the two types of quarterly tax situations that you need to be thinking about, and you need to be wondering if it's something that you need to do. So I'll start with individual taxes. Now, when people become self-employed, they get away from the W-2 day job where you get paid every week or every 2 weeks, and your boss withholds taxes for you. So you're not getting your taxes withheld every 2 weeks, every payroll, and so now what ends up happening is people get self-employed and they have either a disregarded LLC, or they have a sole proprietorship, and all of a sudden they're making money and not paying any taxes. And what happens at the end of the year is you suddenly get stuck with a big tax bill because you're paying all this self-employment tax, you're paying regular tax, and the self-employment tax is the Social Security and the Medicare, and you're sitting there and you're like, man, I'm getting screwed on taxes, and you don't really totally understand why that's happening. And so the IRS has kind of put a line in here and is helped individuals stay on track with their taxes in theory. Okay, so these individual quarterly tax payments that you might have heard about, or also estimated tax payments, is going to be something I'm going to take a minute and just kind of talk to you about. Essentially, what quarterly taxes are on the individual side is strictly meant to keep you paying throughout the year. So the IRS requires, when you owe more than $1,000 in tax, they'll require you to pay estimated taxes or pay a penalty. So I'll get into that a little bit more. Now, if you're self-employed or you have other passive income streams like interest and dividends and different things like that, you have income that's not having withholding, and so that's all going to kind of contribute into that owing more than $1,000 in tax. So here we are. We got to figure out how much income we're going to have. We got to figure out how to break up what the total tax is going to be on that income, and then we have to figure out how we make those 4 payments to sort of stay on track with the burden that we're going to have. Okay, so these quarterly taxes, there's 4 payments, and what the IRS wants you to do in generally, okay, I'll say generally they want you to pay 110% of your prior year tax. So if you owed $5,000 last year, the IRS is going to want you to pay $5,500 in estimated taxes for the next year. Okay, and that'll put you in a safe harbor. It'll get you away from all your penalties, no matter what your real numbers kind of come out to. The penalty is going to be 2%. So if you owed $5,000 and you didn't pay any estimated tax payments, your penalty would be $100. Now, a lot of people, I have a lot of clients who are like, I don't care about the estimated tax penalties. I'll pay my 2% penalty. I'd rather keep the $5,000 in my pocket and then give it to them, throughout the year. And I get that, and that's totally fine. All right, so people want to know how to pay it. IRS.gov. You could go to the EFTPS. You could mail in the voucher. I showed you a picture of the voucher here. If I do your taxes, then all these estimated tax payment, the computer system, my software automatically generates the whole form and tells you how much to pay. So, with a lot of people, I'll be in control of this for you. I'll help you understand what this is, when you need to make these payments, and how to make sure that you avoid the penalties. But I'd say half my clients utilize them, the other half don't care about them. Okay, but if you're one of those people out there that hates owing at the end of the year, if you hate owing, you want to stay on track, you don't want any penalties, then we're going to want to make sure that we calculate out that tax. I might oversimplify this a little bit, but if you owed $6,000 in tax, we would want to make sure that we did 4 payments of $1,500 a piece. And those due dates would be April 15th, June 15th, September 15th, January 15th. Those are the 4 dates. This year with COVID, they extended it. The April 1 is to July 15th, but generally those are the 4 dates where you have to make those estimated payments. All right, the form's really easy to make a payment. But that's the individual quarterly piece. Okay. Now, on the business side, your business quarterly taxes. This is going to be payroll tax form 941. Now, the only time that you're required to file any quarterly business taxes is if you have employees. If you're paying payroll and you're giving W-2s, that's when you have to make a quarterly 941 filing. All right, this 941 filing is going to keep track of what federal withholding you have, what Social Security payments you're making, what Medicare payments you're making. A lot of businesses, a lot of you guys listening are like, well, I use ADP, or my bookkeeper does it for me. And there are common places to file, like QuickBooks, or you pay a payroll service company like ADP. You can do it old-fashioned and mail it in yourself or file it online. Really up to you. You don't have to go through these forms unless you have an employee. If you don't have employees, you don't have a business quarterly tax to file. All right. Now, we'll say this: if you have an employee, and this is where people get into a lot of trouble. Okay, you don't necessarily do it right, but maybe you do have an employee that is working for you, but you're just writing them a check every 2 weeks. You give them $1,000 every 2 weeks, and that's their payroll, right? But if you don't actually go through and file the 941 and issue them a W-2 and remit all the taxes that you would have to pay for Social Security and Medicare, you don't have an employee. You're not issuing a W-2. And people really get into trouble on this kind of stuff. And the states, they rip you apart on this kind of stuff. So does the feds. Okay. They love when people don't do the right things with their employees. All right. So the penalties for not filing 941, let's say you have an employee, but you're just writing them a check, paying them under the table, that type of thing. You don't do the 941. Your penalty is going to be 5% of the amount due per month, up to 25%. Then they'll tack on interest. All right. This really, really can add up if you're going under the table with a couple people. You're much better off just making them, if nothing else, just at least issue the people a 1099. These quarterly forms are due April 30th, July 30th, October 30th, and January 30th. It's a month after the end of the quarter. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you a 941 form. That's mostly it's going to be filled out on a basic payroll. All right, this is just a basic small business and what their payroll would look like. But remember, okay, I think one of the main messages I want to give you here is, if you are like my buddy, perhaps you're like my buddy, you don't necessarily, maybe you don't have any employees, you're just the main person running the business yourself. You're an LLC, a sole proprietor. If you don't have any employees, you don't have to do the business quarterly tax. And then the other thing that I'll say is that using a payroll service company makes it so easy. I mean, there is a charge to it, but like ADP, for example, I have a great relationship with them, send a lot of my clients to them. They handle all the forms, they file the forms, they remit the payments. At the end of the year, they issue the W-2s for you. I mean, like my W-2s are like sitting on my doorstep on like January 3rd. Okay. And so, that service is out there if you're like, hey, I just don't want to worry about this. All right, so I'm going to show you 941 really quick, and I kind of stretched it out so it would kind of fit into the page. So if it's not super clear, I apologize for that. But the form at the top there, you got to put your EIN, the name of your business. You're going to put your address in. Which report, which quarter are you working on here? And then you're going to run through and talk about how many employees you have, what you're paying in wages, how much federal tax is being withheld. And then, this section right here is where you calculate the Social Security and Medicare that needs to be paid. So then in theory, this 2,500 plus the 5,200 equals the 7,700 that you have to send in. So that would be the amount that would have to be sent in by July 30th in this case. So, this isn't a form that's overly difficult, I guess. Some people might think like, oh, hey, Ronnie, you go hire a company for this. I mean, this isn't that difficult of a page, but I mean, for me, I love the convenience of just not having to worry about it as a business owner. This is page 2 and just runs through total taxes, and then, it has the total deposits. Now, if you're using a payroll company, every single time you run your payroll, they're automatically pulling out the money that you need to have withheld for payroll taxes. Now, if you're doing this on your own, you maybe don't have that and need to send in the money. So you can see line 14 here as a balance due. This specific one already had the money being pulled out as it was going, so there's no balance due. Okay. And then this is page 3 where it's just, sign off on it. A lot of these extra lines on here, the 941 form really changed with the COVID stuff. The government threw in some benefits for businesses. If you have employees or you got employees that got sick and got COVID, there's a reduction in payroll taxes and some credits there. So, I kind of gave you a simple one. I didn't want to overdo it on a platform like this, but if anybody has any questions or needs help with any of that sort of stuff, definitely can pitch in there. So, it's a 3-page form. It's not too bad. A lot of people probably could fill this out on their own, but I just wanted to bring a little bit of awareness so that you could kind of see what you were doing here. So, I'm kind of going to be short and sweet on this. Don't need to drag it on out all day or all afternoon or anything like that. But I just wanted to kind of spell out what that individual estimated tax is, and also those business quarterly taxes that you guys have probably been hearing so much about. And if anybody has any questions about either of those and they need help from me, I would love to help you. Appreciate that. Appreciate you guys watching my channel here, and I hope you're finding the information to be really useful and helpful. And leave me a comment if you have any questions. Leave me a comment if you want to see some other certain videos like this, and I would love to do it for you guys. Thanks so much.